Well, my insomniac brain found myself falling asleep to nature documentaries, you know, the ones where you find out how much it sucks not to be human. We're the main characters, baby. Then I had a fun thought. If you couldn't be human, what would be the best option? And no, I don't mean what is your freaking Patronus or spirit animal or whatever. I mean, what would be the closest feeling to being human? You know, your self-awareness, your chances of survival, and your overall consciousness. So I pondered for a little bit, and like any normal person, I started reading about brains. And most people with a freaking brainstem know that the closest relatives are primates and chimps. But honestly, I find that answer kind of boring. Good God, do you have any idea how mean chimps are to each other? Like, they straight up destroy each other in very awful ways. That's basically as far as I can go here on YouTube. And I'm not trying to be all Temple of Doom over here. And there's a very strong hierarchy system, so let's just say your local protest with multicolored hair about social hierarchy isn't gonna work for their lifestyle. And they even have coalitions and they turn on each other. Okay, so it sounds like they take the worst part of us humans and kind of turn it up to 11. Well, that's not really fair because we definitely aren't perfect either. But there's also the possibility of, well, being attacked by a bigger predator. Biggest being the leopard, which is definitely not a good way to go. But chimps do have strong social bonds and they take care of each other once the hierarchy is at a stable pace. If you're the strong solitary type who likes listening to the Black Parade in his room alone and it's totally not a phase mom, the orangutan might be the better option for you and are overall loners for the most part. But then there's, of course, the option to buff your character to 100% strength as the gorilla, which you fight literally all the time with others and have male dominance. I mean, you're literally freaking King Kong. Leopards also occasionally attack, but it's much more rare than, say, a chimp. So even though our brains are similar, and they are the closest relative to our brain, still seem to have a lot of disadvantages compared to humans. So the more I thought about it, wouldn't it be better to just skip being a herbivore altogether, where your likelihood of being hunted is so high? I mean, that sounds stressful enough when I'm just trying to drink some water, dog. Okay, well, what about, say, a big cat? Well, I don't think this is a good option either for the argument of experiencing the world as a human does. The brain is very different and they see the world very differently. There's also a social hierarchy to, say, being a lion, but honestly, in Africa, your chance of survival is actually way better as, say, a hyena. They're extremely social with a strict social system, and they're literally called clans. They might be creepy, but you don't need as much food to survive or as many calories to survive. And the only time lions really attack hyenas is for the most part if they're competing for a meal. But once again, the brain is pretty different. We're looking for the ultimate compromise as a human to feel, well, as human as possible while also not being prey. And there's also crows and ravens, which have been proven to be extremely smart solving puzzles and stuff, but having brittle ass bones, I have no interest in. So maybe we go towards the ocean. Even if you ask your local frat bro at a party and said, hey, what's a really smart animal? They'll probably say the dolphin. The dolphin has always been known to be insanely smart. And they even pass what's called the mirror test, which basically means you put a mirror in front of a dolphin and they will kind of short circuit for a second and go, now wait a minute. That's me. So they do have a sense of self. And they also have strong social bonds called pods. They also have whistles and calls, which is kind of their own form of communicating, kind of like how we speak. Okay, so far, so good. It seems like the dolphin's doing pretty well for the case of the best option of not being human. Until you see that sometimes sharks will target young dolphins, or if you get lost and you're solitary. Dolphins are famously usually okay against sharks, but in a group setting. Okay, so if even one of the smartest animals in the world can still be taken out by Brucey here, is there any animal in the world where you're basically God mode with a big brain? Yup. It's the freaking orca. Okay, seriously, it's pretty much the only apex predator in the entire world that has no natural predator against it. Even though they have the nickname killer whale, they're technically dolphins anyway. And orcas, like dolphins, have whistles and calls that are essentially their pod's language. Imagine this, if you had one orca pod run into another orca pod from a different region of the world, they wouldn't be able to understand each other. Very much like us humans have different languages. In fact, scientists have actually been trying to use AI and technology to try to translate orca language to see if we could actually speak to them. And yes, we have taught primates sign language and stuff like that, but this seems even more crazy. They also have extremely big brains. Their consciousness are believed to be insanely close to how we experience the world. Also, if you're into nature at all, you've probably seen just how crazy smart their hunting methods are. Every single pod does it a different way. One pod will make a tidal wave to knock off their prey at an iceberg, and then another will literally beach themselves and go back to the ocean after. It's basically cheating in the animal kingdom. Orca in Latin is literally god of the underworld and champion of death. And also, as an orca, you're the second fastest marine mammal. Also, just a small little detail, your bite force is 5 times stronger, roughly, of a great white shark that has social structure. You pass the mirror test, so you have a frame of reference of who you are, and you don't have a single natural predator. This also makes complete sense why the orcas in small tanks in captivity literally go insane. They have brains so powerful that it would probably equate to putting a human in solitary confinement and never letting them out. There's insane wrinkles in the brain of the orca, which in the dumbest explanation possible basically means more complex wrinkles can equate to better intelligence. So yeah, smooth brain jokes are actually backed by science. You're welcome. Side note, I actually saw Shamu when I was a kid. And even then, it felt a little off. And yes, this is my home movie footage of it from the 90s. You'll even notice the slumped over dorsal fin, which only happens in captivity, probably referencing some form of stress or depression. But out of all the animals we talked about, I don't know if people would have guessed an underwater creature. But I'll tell you what, I'm going with Willy if I absolutely had to be something else. So, what about you? What animal are you choosing? See you later.